So what I want to do this morning in terms of the Tyze story, I want to take, just do a little tad of history, given it is a 20-year-old story. I want to share some of the current context that Tyze finds itself in, some of the challenges, and some of our lessons. I'd like to share some of those from a personal perspective and an organizational perspective in a way that I hope that you will find practical and will have meaning for you in your very important work. So let me begin just by telling you what Tyze is. So Tyze itself is an online network. It creates personal networks of support that result in better health outcomes and full lives for people experiencing life challenges. Just to give you a sense in terms of the online network, how many of you here have Facebook, LinkedIn, any of those kinds of accounts? So Tyze is a version of that, created very, very specifically, though, to create small personal networks. Tyze networks create and strengthen connections for people experiencing life challenges, and some of our users include older adults, people with disabilities, people living with HIV/AIDS, chronic illness. There's many, many reasons why people come to Tyze, and we've actually created it in a way that we think everyone will want to have a Tyze at some point in their lifetime. The networks benefit certainly people in the center of the network, but they also benefit the friends and family who love them, because Tyze is a way to coordinate and collaborate in care, and also the caregivers and care providers and organizations that support them. So these are the main users of Tyze itself. But let me just take you right into a story to begin to elaborate how Tyze works. And this is the story of Team Joan. And Team Joan was created around a really marvelous woman who lives on her own, very quiet. She has a deep passion for birds and sports. Interesting combination, but those are her deep passions. And Joan is someone who, you can meet her many times, and you might not think that she even notices you, but she's got this kind of special gift of, you're standing in a crowd and she just comes up and stands beside you and starts to speak. And if I bumped into her yesterday, she probably might have maybe come up and stood right next to me, a little close, and said, "Habs won, eh?" Right? Last December, Joan got very, very ill with necrotizing fasciitis. That's the flesh-eating disease. It's a life-threatening disease, terrifying. A Tyze network formed around her of about a dozen people, and that network was so focused in those early critical days on keeping everyone informed, because there were many, many surgeries. It was touch and go. They were working very hard about how to be in touch with Joan in the hospital. So there was instructions on the Tyze network about things like, Joan likes the Province Sports Reporter, that's a paper in Vancouver. So if you're going to visit her, buy a copy of the Province and read her the sports column. When she got a phone in the hospital, the email came into our inboxes, those of us on her network, and it said ring, and there was the phone number. It was just so easy to pick up the phone and give her a call. And so her network saw her through this very, very critical period with a lot of love and a lot of encouragement. And really by January, the end of January, she had passed through the worst of it. She was about to turn 60 in very early February, and her network got very active in planning a birthday party for her. So this was just really so it was early February when this was. And so that all of a sudden the Tyze network became this whole flurry of activity, organizing people to create birds and decorate her room and so on. And so here is Joan's room at the birthday party. That's her sister at the top there. There were hundreds of birds in that hospital room. The hospital staff didn't know quite what to make it. Each of those birds had a little something on it that wished her well or talked about her. They all got bird tattoos, as you can see in one of those. And the birthday party was capped off by the singing of Happy Birthday by the Latvian bobsled team. So it was a good party, and it was a good shot for the spirit of Joan, who has certainly had many health challenges over the years, and many mental health challenges, particularly in the realm of depression. And this shot was really important because the hospital was ready to move her out. And given that Joan could not transfer herself from the bed to a wheelchair, they were moving her out, not back home, but into an extended care. Her network got really active in a couple of ways, certainly in encouraging her to exercise and walk and so on. And they also did some advocacy within the hospital so that they convinced the hospital to send Joan for rehabilitation. And she went to this rehabilitation facility called Purdy. This is Joan there now, and with a therapist, and it's also her out at one of the Olympic events. There was lots of love and support that enabled these things and increased her strength, but I can tell you it's been very touch and go about Joan going home. Again, this question of transfer. So the site itself became, again, like on the calendar of it, all these exercise regimes that the members were participating in with Joan and whatever. And what I want to show you is some of the most recent postings on Joan's site. So if you go, I know it's a little bit hard to see, especially if you're at the back, but I just want to point out that the very bottom entry, and this is a Tyze home page, this is Joan's home Tyze page, and it's the message center there in the middle in the white. The very bottom note there is April 28th, and it says homeward bound. So Joan is going home. The note above is congratulations, and then the next note below that, or above that, is hello friends, 5 goals for Joan. And it starts out saying, we all know Joan's made great progress, and it's by setting goals. Here are some of the goals that they've set about watching TV shows relating to beer, relating to birds, going out for coffee, all these kinds of things. Again, making it easy for this network to walk with Joan into this next part of her life as she goes back home, but supporting her certainly to have what we would describe as a good life. I think Joan's is a particularly powerful story because it represents obviously a good life and a good outcome for her. It also represents a pretty effective use of resources. When you think about what it might have cost for Joan to go into extended care as opposed to go home, have in-home support and so on, suddenly we're looking at an equation that works for Joan and what she wants in her life, but also works to address some of the challenges that our systems are facing. Let me take you just a little bit to where all of this started. And Stephen alluded to some of this in his discussion about PLAN. So PLAN was created 20 years ago, and it was created, I know most of you will know the story, but just very quickly, PLAN was created to answer a question that families of people with disabilities have, which is what's going to happen to my relative when I'm not there. What's going to happen to my relative with a disability when I die? Fundamentally, we have 2 pillars that we address to answer that question, and one is the financial security. And we support families with their wills and estate planning, and also work on policy and regulatory fronts, most recently in the realm of the Registered Disability Savings Plan that will impact 500,000 Canadian families. The other pillar to answer this question, though, has always been, you can have financial security, but without people who know you and love you, so what? It's really, and often underneath the question that the families are asking is, it's not really what's going to happen, it's who's going to be there. So what we did, we created 20 years ago, this very strategic and focused approach to developing circles of friends or social networks using a community connector. And we have built those networks in several countries now. We offer online training in this work. And we have honestly seen the power of caring relationships to literally transform lives. We have seen people quite simply loved into existence, where being in the presence of others who love them they become present amongst us.